This week on Hermitcraft.
Look at that! Oh, he's there. Oh, he knows what he's up to. Joined the fight.
Player 4 has entered the game. Welcome to the Hermitcraft recap. Our writer is LoyXP, my name is PixelRiffs, and childhood photos sure are embarrassing.
I just came in, I've seen, look, this is the original architect meeting room, complete with the original architect logo. God, the new one's a lot better, isn't it? Blimey.
In other delightful news, this week sees the return of Wells Knight after a much-needed burnout break, and Stress Monster, who never left, but we got some comments who missed her. And since at least one of them will need a briefing on what is even going on anymore, let's take a look at all the events and mishaps that occurred on the Hermitcraft server this week.
The universe conspired against me to keep me from Hermitcraft. It was ridiculous.
Starting with Doc M, who made good on his promise to upscale his composter base. The inside now looks like a giant composter, complete with layers of podzol, leaves, green carpets, and rotting fruit to make it look like the compost is active.
Yeah, it's starting to get somewhere. Yeah, this looks like a trash pizza. That's the place I want to live.
We think the extra foliage may be compensating for the fact that his bush at the stock exchange has disappeared again, but it doesn't stop Doc from having greater ambitions for the place, setting up a new pufferfish-powered piston door to exit from the composter into the rest of the complex.
No, not again. Oh, man.
Doc isn't the only one with a productive basement producing a kind of weird smell. Now that Impulse has established a house for Impulse Jr., he wants his villager dynasty to continue, so he sets up a villager breeder under the floorboards. The resulting villagers may have some interesting genetic code, but at least he's letting them roam the village freely. They'll get lost in the alleyways, wander over magma blocks, and get picked off by zombies, but the idea is that the breeder will just activate based on the number of beds, and that should compensate for any tragic losses.
So I think if we fly around, we can find them, and one of them actually got into here and then grew up, so he's kind of without a bed. He's stuck in here, unfortunately.
Back at the Hermit Heartland, he revisits iTrade, now a shell of its former self, and makes some back-end improvements, allowing the villagers who remained to restock their trades, and possibly laying the groundwork for iTrade 2.0. Zedaf works the grounds more directly, as his flower biome greenhouse needs quite a bit of fertilization. The skeletons at his spawner are in for a treat, or rather a threat. Zedaf is not at all interested in dealing with them personally, so Lava Blade it is. The ones that will spawn in future have an even worse fate. The arrows their predecessors dropped are going right back into the system and into several dispensers to help everyone in the dark room along the water streams.
Then we need some sort of auto shulker system and that. There's so much more we can do with this. It's going to be pretty cool because the bone mill's going to need to be flowing. Bone mill flowing, base be growing.
A much friendlier solution for bone meal presents itself to TFC. He's been looking into the composters, but unlike Doc M, he doesn't just sit in one decomposing slowly. Instead, he chucks in all the seeds he's gathered from his crop farms, which by now is several shulker boxes worth, and channels them back into his storage system for easy use later. The one setback comes when he realises he used a dispenser instead of a dropper, and instead of sending the bony stuff down the water stream, he was just automatically growing seagrass.
It gets used. But looky there. Okay, that's a dispenser. All right, I'm going to try replacing that with a dropper.
A minor adjustment later, he heads out to Minetasm to drop off a lifetime supply of lapis for Azuma, as a nice bonus for being the only customer to ever consider buying lapis.
Look at this, how much does the lapis cost? That was a freebie, no worries. I mean, this is a freebie, I can't be having that.
Now, the reason Azuma Void is in need of blue in his life is really so he can give the good old gold farm a last run for its money, seeing as how this particular design won't work quite as easily in the coming snapshots. It is of course for a god tier armor set, though he does stop at the last book on every piece to ask the audience for cool gear names.
But here is the deal, this is in 1.14 to 1.14.2. In the next one it's going to go away, so when you try and do this you're not going to be able to add the blast protection anymore.
And extra protection will help when one plans to do a run of Grian's Elytra course for every episode, as well as a hefty number of diamonds to pay for the pleasure, although Grian has knocked the price to 2 flies per diamond. Wouldn't want to make too much money and all.
33 diamonds on this project. That's probably more diamonds than I've made on other projects. Oh, look at the diamonds!
Now sufficiently reinforced, Azuma heads out to the endest game there is, but only because that's where he left his wool farm. And now that dispensers can shear sheep, it sure would be a shame not to adjust it for a full AFK experience.
And now you can see a lot of the sheep have been what's the word? Sheared. Well then, all of the droppers are in place, the storage system has been expanded, and now I want to add an overflow system just because some of these sell more than others.
Zombie Cleo's cow farm in the meantime adjusted itself just fine. There are no cows in it.
An issue or two. So, I need to go find some cows.
Not bothering to contact the entity restoration services of the admin, Cleo just leads a new batch in, then kicks the leather armor back into production. The armor stands will need some colourful clothes, and it's only the best for the Hermitcraft headed ones. Which, yes, there's now a lot of. In case you missed B-dubs on Hermitcraft, well, there he is right there, or at least a visage of him. If you missed Joe Hills on Hermitcraft, there's a bit of him too.
It's pointing out, there's a kraken there. Oh, from here it looks really close up. Because that's how I imagine Joe dealing with this situation. Ooh, and then he'd give me its scientific name, and then I'd have to kill him.
But there's a lot more of him over at Hermitville, where he's been evening out and spawn-proofing his expansion to the walls. Despite the torch spam, he doesn't want to reintegrate it with the rest of Hermitville without the supervision of someone who's had to deal with the pillager threat, so he compromises by removing all but a few low barriers and installing a couple of fence gates for easy access. So Wells Knight is able to easily access it to the point where he puts a house in there as soon as he sees the empty spot.
So I think this is a good compromise between just completely demolishing the wall, because like Ren worked hard on this.
Indeed, after 2 episodes of touring the server and getting adjusted to just how much has changed since the war, Wells discovers the Hermitville and realizes just how Wells Knight this place really is.
I don't even know what I would call this. It's kind of castle-ish? Temple-ish? I don't know what I would call this, but like this type of stuff, like this is my bread and butter.
Seems like fitting back into the flow will take no effort after all. But even more Wells Knight is the medieval district of the server, even without him contributing to it recently, since in his absence, False Symmetry took it upon herself to liven the place up and build 2 more common folk houses bootlegged right off of Wells's original one. Even more so, False paves a courtyard at her Cathedral of Redness, plus stops by the industrial area to start a factory build, since she never had a chance to mess around with that style.
But what I'm thinking is definitely abandoned, so we can add some leaves and bring in some life to this area, because it's so dead otherwise.
And while it is not a functional plant, lest we forget that she is in fact able to redstone it up, as proven by her gunpowder record disc farm that got a spiffy creeper branded nether tunnel this week. Though somewhere else, the same green boys are used to make a whole different kind of music.
And then, yeah, you heard the TNT down there explode, so then we just do the next button. A little bit closer.
To be fair, Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture did ask for a cannon to be fired in the theatre. Though going nuclear is to be expected of Cub, the real purpose of this cannonade is actually to save on digging. The blasts are timed using redstone, so they go up the chute, not destroying any of the drops at the bottom of it. But if you're wondering if he's as good at playing the bells, don't worry, he won't have to. They're hooked to a dispenser, firing arrows at them, and are therefore redstone automated. The actual purpose of ringing them is quite curious as well. On the mountains surrounding Concorp, Cub installed 3 pillager-populated towers.
And now he's made a roller coaster to get up to the top, which is amazing. I love this so much. Let's see, bail before the end of the track. Why? Why would I do that? Oh, I think there's bad people up there.
At sunset, these towers will light campfires at the top of them, to signal Rohan no doubt, and at set times of day they'll ring bells hidden inside to make the pillagers glow and report that the troops are in fact on watch. And given the opportunity, all 3 will happily fire at a flying by hermit. Sadly, despite this generous offering to Illager kind, the Vindicators trapped up there remain as vindictive as ever.
And so yeah, those guys are doing well. Let's not have them kill... Let's not have him kill us.
To ward Hermitville from the menace, Cubfan builds a pillager outpost out there in hopes that the raiding bunch at least won't investigate the one house that looks like their own. This did not stop them from taking out all the Grian-made villagers for the 3rd time.
This fox is literally destroying these pillagers. Yes! This is the greatest moment in all of Minecraft right now.
But Cub still has the last laugh as he wrangles several pillager beasts away from their owners to use in a minigame he calls the Running of the Ravagers. Here's hoping it's not just throwing Scar in a pen with them. Though Scar has already thrown himself in a pen with much more ferocious people anyway. Once the progress at the Sweet Berry Town reaches the space age, Scar promptly takes a rocket to Hermitville's soil. This one survives at least well enough to flip it and reverse it, blasting Scar and a sizable chunk of land still stuck on its nose into the winning position of Iskall, Grin, and Mumbo's house race.
Goes up, doesn't come down in Minecraft, and gets stuck in the air right there. But we made the best of it by putting our house on top of our allocated land here at the Hermit Village, and I think it came out pretty cool.
I think he's a little bit taller than Iskall's house. No way!
Grian takes none of it and fires back by not only building his own cottage to the same height, but also by tying an anvil to Iskall's house, which inadvertently causes Grian to rebuild the entire thing back on the ground, because that's how buoyancy works. At least Iskall can now repair all of his giant tools. Scar responds by just installing an elegant TV antenna which clutches the victory out of the Sahara Boy's hands by a couple of blocks.
This is hilarious. Cub keeps trying to put this in my inventory. Little does he know, my inventory is completely full.
To add insult to injury, Mr. Goodtimes raises a flying saucer over Hermitville to combat Sahara Express and provide freshly updated blocks to the populace. How said populace will get out of their saucer is evidently none of Concorp's concerns, as by that time they probably already have their money.
How do I get out? I think I've been bamboozled here. I think I'm a little bit stuck.
Luckily for the Convex, Grian is too busy recovering from the death of his namesake villager to respond. The hippie collective doesn't take kindly to the flying houses either, since Renbob, still parked just around the corner, notices a number of balloons drifting off and popping on nearby berry bushes.
Most disturbingly of all, man, the toxicity of these rubber plastic balloons seem to be mutating the citizens of Hermitville. Here at the Hermit Hippie Collective, we only have one thing to say, man. This environmentally damaging aggression will not stand, man. We're also sure that everybody in the queue outside of Sahara, man, will help support the Hermit Hippie Collective in cleaning up this nasty environmental damage in Hermitville.
Iskall later drops off an apology note and reassures Renbob the balloons are made of wool, which, to be fair to him, they are, and that promises to be less damaging to the environment. Renbob also receives a note from Concorp thanking him for his responsible stewardship of the environment, along with a handful of diamonds, presumably so he won't notice all the rocket fuel they're burning trying to be the top dogs at Hermitville. Speaking of dogs, the Wren variety spends some time back at the Fantasy District beautifying the sewer system leading to his base, putting a few new touches to the Alchemy Tower, and taking some inspiration from some concept art of Japanese towns, he extends the peninsula of the Fantasy Lands so he can build a fortified city.
And there we go. Thousands of dirt blocks placed later, my friends. We have the foundations of Dragon City placed.
Iskall is actually quite impressed with his rival's attempts to bring the house down.
My balloon looks a bit deflated as well. What the heck? Hold on. Grian, did you build yours higher than mine?
So much so that he doesn't retaliate just yet. Instead, he spends some time over at his arena minigame project and actually gets it functionally complete, which is probably a server record at this point. The beacon scoring system is actually pretty nifty.
2 flags and 3 flags if I now score all 3, and that's when I would have won in this scenario.
Holding off on building more in Hermitville, Iskall's got to find an outlet somewhere, and he finds it several thousand blocks south of the main Hermit Island, settling down on a mushroom island which he plans to turn into another mega base project. The main focus will be villagers, since his ambitions for them have outgrown the lab out in the Bergs, and here he can have all the space he wants, hostile mob free. Which is why he immediately builds a place where hostile mobs can spawn. His first project is a creeper farm powered by wither roses bought directly from Azuma. Stepping in to suggest a partnership before Azuma puts together the world's creepiest flower shop, Iskall takes a bouquet of death back to the island and sets up 2 platforms of auto-withering creepers. One quick sugarcane auto farm later, he's got himself an easy firework production line. Then, because it's Iskall, he builds a factory around it.
I don't want to limit myself this time. I don't want to limit myself to a block palette. I don't want to limit myself to anything. And I really think that this is a great start, and I say start because it's essentially just a facade, to our creeper rocket factory of doom.
Mumbo's also back to being industrial, especially now TNT does the boom boom thing with 100% efficiency. His TNT dupers work so well that they blow up the farm 3 times in the process, thanks in parts to overproductive smoothstone generators and a safety ring of obsidian that wasn't really all that safe.
That seems like it's doing exactly as I expected it to. Now, how do I turn it off safely? Not like that, not like that, not like that. Okay, yeah, there's a small amount that needs to be done. We had a lag spike, and everything's broken.
Once the ringing in his ears has gone away and the farm actually works, Mumbo sets up a control room in his storage area with levers and buttons he can push and pull to activate each farm in the area individually, which inevitably means Grian has to pay him a visit and poke everything until it probably breaks. This might be a good distraction tactic, since Grian has also gone for a more subtle form of sabotage, building one wing of his Hermitville house just close enough to Mumbo's slime block rocket that it overhangs the launch pad and might displace bits of the mechanism when it takes off.
Now, here's the thing. I didn't want to put it straight over the top, and then he's going to launch it anyway, and what's going to happen is that because this is overhanging, it's going to get caught on that and then stop.
And finally, there's Stress Monster, who is in the unfortunate position of being late to the party and having the vertical space above her house crowded out by the Sahara boys. So, in a lateral move, she extends her house horizontally, almost touching the perimeter wall, and attempts to win the tallest house contest with a beacon beam. We're not sure if this counts, but nobody's really seen the rulebook for this competition anyway.
There we go! One beacon, which could probably do with some white glass instead of blue glass, but now who's got the tallest house, eh?
After making sure Mumbo has actually fed his pet chicken, Stress returns to the ice fort, adds a viewing balcony to an upstairs room, which might become a kitchen/dining room. At least surrounded by all that packed ice, she doesn't need to worry about installing a freezer. And that's just about it for this week's recap. Our writer is LoyXP, and my name is Pixelriffs. This week I started a village in the end, so they're also dealing with unreasonably tall neighbours. Anyway, check out that video linked in the end screen theatre. Don't forget to leave a like while you're still here, and subscribe so you won't miss future recaps. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.